You, Elder.
Check one, check two, check three, check four.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Florence Duncan to open up with an opening prayer, and then we'll get on the opening remarks.
Okay, got the bus in our meeting today as we attend this very important meeting. Father God, I ask you to just be with us tonight, to bless our gathering, that you help us protect our land, protect the land for our children in the future, and that we would do it properly in the way when we want to do work in the land, in the waters, that it'll be there for the future, for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Bless each and every one that is here, that we will have a meaningful conversation regarding mining on our land. Father, I ask for your blessing and I give you honor, praise, and glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I can say thank you.
No, I think it's best we wait for them. They'll come.
Okay, well, I'll let them do it when they come, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just call them when they come.
All right. Okay, I'm just going to go over the agenda, and we'll get going with our first presentation. I want to introduce myself, and my name is Gilbert Fredette, Norway House Cree Nation liaison with Loretta Mowat on the mining, the Minago project, considering the Norway House Cree Nation. Loretta, I want to get Loretta to say a couple of words.
Hi, good evening. So this is our second meeting. We had our first meeting on November 17th, where we had Flying Nickel introduce the project. So this meeting is more on environmental licensing. So the province are the main presenters. Okay.
Tell them what we're doing, who we saw today, and then call up.
Sessions in the community on the mine, what it is, where it's at, those types of information. So we had sessions at UCN and at HBO, talked to about 80 of our youth in the community. So we had some really all ears, I would say, and some good questions. So we're hoping for the same tonight, and thanks to everyone who could make it. This session is being broadcast on YouTube. So for anyone out there, thanks for listening. Our guests in the room tonight, I'm going to ask the province to stand up. So those are our provincial reps, our guests in the community, and up here in front, Flying Nickel. Can you please stand up? They are here to answer questions, but they won't be doing any presentations tonight. So I'm going to ask Gary Kershane to come up and do some opening comments as well.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Try that again. Amin bonjour. Gary Cochin Dishnakas, Saging Nonji. My name's Gary Cochane. I'm we're here tonight to do the So we're here tonight to do the Indigenous consultation, or part of the process of the consultation on the alteration to the Environmental Act license that was issued in 2011. We are required by law through a number of court cases that happened in 2004 that tells us that any government or government agency that makes a decision or rights, consultation is required. I'd like to introduce Leona McIntyre, who will be doing the bulk of the presentation. Also, the staff is Kelly Heglin, who's our note taker, Gavin Bergeron, who is also going to be taking notes, and Kendra Stewart, who is an observer, making sure that we do the consultation properly. So I'll let Leona take over.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you very much for the supper. It was delicious, and thank you for welcoming. So I'm just going to and how we do legal first. And this may infringe upon or adversely affect the exercise of Aboriginal right or treaty rights of any Aboriginal or any Indigenous community. So this duty arises out of Section 35 of the Constitution Act of 1982, and it protects Indigenous and treaty rights. So one of the things that 35.1 states is the existing Aboriginal and treaty rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada are hereby recognized and affirmed. Also in 35.2 in this act, it states Aboriginal peoples of Canada includes the Indian, Inuit, and Métis peoples of Canada. And so to us, this is the most important part, is that your Aboriginal and treaty rights are protected. Next slide, please. So what is Crown Indigenous consultation? It's a Crown obligation, and that means the proponents, anyone that applies to do anything in any community, Indigenous community, they have to consult. And they may be expected to participate as they play a role in sharing information, how we're doing tonight. And it's a process by the Crown. We have 4 phases. And it focuses, again, on the Indigenous and treaty rights, as well as to then identify any accommodation measures and in avoiding, minimizing, or mitigating any potential adverse effects. So the role of the government, we encourage the proponent to do early engagement with Indigenous communities. We work with Indigenous communities, and we make sure we validate the information that's collected by the proponents. As well, we assess whether the duty to consult is triggered, and that's what we call an initial assessment. And we also notify the Indigenous communities and the proponents when this duty to consult has been triggered. And we always like to share information in a meaningful way with Chief and Council. So things like planning and proceed with Crown Indigenous consultation, any project details, be they short or long-term adverse effects to the land, water, natural resources, any timelines, reports, maps, all these need to be shared. And we also meet with community members to listen, to understand their concerns, and answer questions. And as Gary had mentioned, we have a team dedicated to consultation. So please come talk to us, tell us your issues, and we will document them and make sure they are reviewed. So again, the role of the Manitoba government is, one of the things I want to say is for us, the first point of contact is usually Chief. Work with Chief and Council to collaborate and agree in a work plan, including meetings with elders, community members. We met with youth today. That's important. So we want to present the proponents project and hear your concerns, the community concerns, and how the community and the related impacts to the land and your Indigenous and treaty rights. We'll provide information about the decision-making process, our government decision-making process, to both the proponents and the communities, the Indigenous communities involved. We also communicate the decision made in writing to the First Nations and the proponent. And one of the things when we talk about consultation, it takes place in every stage of mineral work, from mine exploration, mine development, mine operation, and closure and reclamation. So basically, consultation is constant. And as you can see, we have phase 1, the initial assessment and planning. So some of the things we do, Manitoba will identify who the lead department is, as well as complete an initial assessment, and also develop any overall plans for the consultation process. So we do work with the communities in a good way to make sure it's done properly. And in the initial assessment, the department will determine whether the duty to consult is triggered, and if it is, and for which communities, and it also establishes a level of consultation required for each community, be it high, medium, or low. But we do make sure that we look at that. And any of the results that we have, and based on the initial assessment, the department will create an overall plan for the consultation process, and that includes the budget as well. The department also considers the timing that is mutually appropriate for Manitoba and the community capacity, and the community consultation protocols, if they are applicable. Then when we look at phase 2 of the consultation, that's the actual process. And most of the consultation takes place in phase 2. This is the phase where it's community-specific consultation process with each community, and it's planned and carried out. And the amount of the consultation and the depth of it depends on the level of, the process depends on the level of consultation. As well, phase 2 begins with initial communication to the community that the government is doing, undertaking a consultation process, and this is in respect to the proposed decision or action. So if Manitoba does not receive a response from a community, Manitoba must make all reasonable efforts to follow up and contact the community, including calls, emails, faxes, letters. Sometimes we're kind of a pain, but we really do want to communicate with the community in a good way. Now, when we look at any low-level consultation process, this typically occurs by letter, and any medium to high-level consultation, this process typically involves meetings with the community. And for all the processes, the department will record the community's concerned, any proposed accommodation measures we need to take that arise and are discussed through the consultation process, as well as the department's response to these concerns and accommodation measures and what that would look like. And then when we have phase 3 of it's the analysis and the recommendation, the department usually analyzes in response to community comments and concerns. As well, this requires analysis of whether the concerns are significant or minor, whether they have already been addressed through the project designer proponent, and if not, whether there needs to be accommodation. So when we hear your concerns, we go through them and make sure they're looked at and addressed. As well, we prepare a summary table of each concern and the proposed accommodation and measure that will mitigate any of this. As well, the Manitoba's response to each concern and measure will be looked at. If applicable, the department will need to plan for accommodation measures, and this may include certain conditions for approvals, any changes to the proposed activity, or the denial of the application. And one of the things, just lastly, the department will complete the final consultation report and include the concerns identified and measures raised by the affected community or communities. The final report, notice we put it and underlined it and bolded it and everything, but I think that was for my information, make sure I didn't forget this. But the final report will be submitted to the designated decision maker for consideration, and the decision maker will consider the report before making any decisions that may adversely affect Aboriginal and treaty rights. And then we have phase 4, which is the final reporting, the implementation, and the monitoring. So the department will communicate the Crown's decision to each of the communities and that had participated in the consultation process. And then we'll explain whether and how each specific concern raised by the community was and or will be addressed. And for higher level consultations, we may hold follow-up meetings with the communities just to discuss the decision and the accommodation measures. The lead department in this will be responsible to ensure the implementation of Manitoba's decision and any accommodation measures, as well as to monitor the effectiveness of these accommodation measures in avoiding, minimizing, or mitigating any adverse effects of the decision. So any action or any decision or action on Aboriginal land and treaty rights. So we always have to make sure that we're looking at how any of this affects Aboriginal and treaty rights. And where applicable, the government can coordinate other departments to carry out any implementation and monitoring of the decision and any accommodation measures. And then we look at the proponent engagement. So the proponents wanting to work in Manitoba, whether they're new to the province or not, are strongly encouraged to engage early with the community or communities surrounding the proposed work, and this is to save time and gather social support from the community. In our department, we have always attempted to guide the proponent to early engagement and inform the proponent the best way to proceed with work based on our experience and understanding of the permitting system. And this could look like certain things like introducing the proponent to the community, such as the chief council, elders, land users. That's important as well, the land users. We also inform the proponent of any customary protocols or preferred methods of contact, such as through legal counsel. Some prefer us to go through legal counsel first, and that's just making sure that we're doing how we can work together in a good way. The department, and also any exploration activities that can be started before the proposed work is or is not permitted. And this can include funding a heritage land study, presenting company information to the community, among other things. The department aims to ensure that the proponent understands the consultation and fills in any gaps. Our department also works to inform the proponent on the status of their permit and aims to narrow in any timelines that are beneficial to the proponent and the communities. And then we look at reconciliation, because this is something that is important to us at the province as well. You know, it's about establishing and maintaining a mutually respectful relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in this country. And we invite you to have dialogue with us. We want to listen to the opportunity to share your concerns and your ideas of how to mitigate and mitigate any impact related to the land. So in Manitoba, we use Manitoba's Path to Reconciliation Act in 2016. And this is a touchstone for working in a good way with our Indigenous communities. And of course, we look at the four components of that: respect, engagement, understanding, and action. And with that, if there's any questions, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll have a Q&A session after the next presentation. For our people here that want to ask questions in their own language or get it interpreted back to you, Mike Miswagon is here to help out if anybody needs that. Just raise your hand and Mike will come by and talk to you about what's being said and what's being done with respect to our people that speak the language. We're going to have somebody from the leadership come and say opening remarks when they come. And I wanted to let everybody know that in 2011, we went through this process already. And it was the Norway House Cree Nation and the leaders and the elders of that at that time that said no to Victory Nickel because of the environmental impacts that it would have had to our community at that time. So it took 12 more years to make sure that we did it right, and we made sure that the lands and waters are protected. And we're going to be talking to another presenter right away that's going to go through the environmental license for us. And then once that presentation is done, we're going to open it up to the floor. We're going to ask everybody there's a few people here, so ask one question each. And then as we go through the group, and if you have another question, we'll come back to you for another question. And let's be respectful to our guests and to the people that are here today. I'm really happy to see our elders out in full force in the community with this very, very important consultation with the province. I'm going to call up Loretta to discuss what's going to be happening on our next presentation, and then we'll get it all queued up.
So as Gilbert described, we went through this process. It's going to be a little bit repetitive. There'll be some in the presentation that's coming up, but basically, Victory Nickel applied for an Environment Act license to construct and operate a mine at the Minago site in 2000. By the time it got to our community, it was 2010. So we went through a really vigorous round of consultation sessions here in the community. They got their Environment Act license in August of 2011. And we had strongly disagreed with some of their plans, specifically their discharge to 30% of their discharge of mine waste or mine water would have went to Oakley Creek, which would eventually drain to Lake Winnipeg near Limestone Bay. So we were really opposed to that. And the second thing was the location of their tailings pond, which was in the Lake Winnipeg watershed. So subsequent to that, the nickel prices dropped and started to improve a bit. And Flying Nickel acquired the property in 2021. And those are the gentlemen that are here. So they had Victory Nickel had applied for a notice of alteration. So once you have, you're in the licensing process, and what they had submitted in their environmental impact statement in the beginning, they were going to do some alterations, and that was at our last presentation, so there's a number of alterations. It'll be in this upcoming presentation, but that's where that's why we're in this process again. So we're doing community engagement. So right now there's two things that are happening with the submission of the notice of alteration from Flying Nickel. So it triggers this duty to consult, and that's what we're doing here in these sessions. And then the other process is a review by the, it's a technical review of departments, I guess provincial and federal departments, the technical advisory committee review, just to see, make sure that, you know, everything's the way it should be, I guess. So we had invited Environmental Approvals Branch of Manitoba, who will be pretty much the ones that'll be issuing the permit, or to come and present at this meeting. We asked for them to update on the process. Okay, so describe the process when you get an application for a project like this, what happens at the provincial level, and also to describe or to summarize what's happening with specifically with the Minago mine. So that's this presentation coming up. But first, we're going to ask Councillor Ed Albert to come and do some opening comments, and then we'll have that presentation.
Thank you, Loretta. Welcome, Nista from Chief and Council. I'm here to do some opening remarks, and Nista listen in with the presentations. And I hope you asked a lot of questions. It's good to ask those questions to get a firm understanding of, you know, what's going to happen. And I'm glad that all of you showed up here, and hopefully we'll have a good feedback here from those that are present here. And and I hope listen and ask a lot of questions.
Thank you, Councillor Albert. We are waiting for the connection to take place for the next presentation. But until then, I would like to call the province back up again, and maybe we can ask a few questions of the presentation you've heard. And as soon as we're ready to go, we will go right to that presentation. Okay. Yeah, sure. Whenever.
Hello. Okay, my name is Hubert Hart from Norway House Cree Nation. First of all, one question I want to ask is what happened to the other mine that was there? Did they ever do any environmental study on it? Not that I know of, anyway.
I'm going to call up Gary. He's standing up just because I'm new to the game, and Gary's our resident knowledge keeper for this. So here, thanks, Gary.
There was never any mine developed in the area because of Norway House objection to the Environmental Act license. Victory Nickel was required to make alterations to the application, and that's what we're here to consult on, is that alteration to that application made by Victory Nickel.
But did they ever do an environmental study on that one, the last one? Because when you pass by there and I walk by or even walk by, there seemed to be nothing. It just cover everything up, even up to that little lake up there. that they work on in 1960. Working up in the bush there, and they said nobody ever, and you can still find metal, stuff like that, that are still covered, buried out there. And don't tell me I don't see it, because we went over there quite a few times, and we see those things in there.
There was an Environmental Act license granted to Victor Nicol in 2011, and they were, the environmental study was done on the site.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'm kind of surprised, you know, when you guys said that you're going to collect your tree rights and everything, anything close to the water, that they were going to do an environmental study. Then you look at that, the fuel barn that's there where the fuel is. Nobody ever did a study on it. I'm very surprised. This is in our tree land. It's close to the water, and nobody ever done anything about it. I'm very surprised about it. Hopefully that when you guys are finished your environmental study, you take us out there and show us what you guys did. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure that we could do a site visit once the Environmental Act license has been approved, if it gets approved. Thank you.
Anyone have another question for Gary? or whoever, Loretta. Oh yes, here we go. Or for any other member of the team.
A question for him. So, your mining company, Flying Nickel, right? So you've been, just got this from, what's that other company there? You've been there, what, 18 months you said? Beginning of 2021, you got it off them? Yeah? And what's the shares you bought off them? That'll tell you what we're dealing with. So for me, what you guys are trying to do, Cree Nation, is trying to sign this mine, and you guys are coming here, and both of yous are here. You wouldn't be here if this wasn't about dollars. I guarantee that. And I'm telling you the truth. And you got some mining happened where? Where was your last mining? You don't have any? Okay, I'll read it to you. Flying Nickel. Flying Nickel is bound to cut and fill shaft that has sunk, and it'll cut into the trapping and fishing, decimate the lands around it, and fill their pockets while leaving residents blind and harsh new reality. Just ask Yellowknife about the giant mine, left taxpayers and hooked them with left taxpayers about $1 billion in cleanup.
Hello, Lester. Thank you very much. That's definitely good questions. As I stated before, this is consultation with the province, right? So we're going to let the province talk and engage with the community. And after we're finished the next presentation, we'll entertain some of the concerns that you have. I suggest, like I said before, let's be totally transparent and respectful to one another. And we'll ask one question as we go around the room, and then we'll ask another one when everything is done, and we can come back if you have another question. But right now, Lester, can we hold that off until we finish this next presentation because time is counting? Thank you very much. We do appreciate that, and we're ready to head into our next presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A again, and you can bring up your question, Lester.
Are you able to hear me? All right, I'm going to start talking. Somebody can let me know in the chat here if it's not working, but good evening, everybody. I am Siobhan Berland-Ross. I'm with the Environmental Approvals Branch in the Department of Environment and Climate. We changed our name again last week, but we still do the same work. So I'm going to give you some more detail about the story you've already heard in the introduction here about the licensing process that happened before, back in 2010, and as well where we're at now and what the next steps are. So I'm going to share my screen, and if somebody can let me know if it's working, that would be great. Let me just get this up for you here. All right. Can we see the slides? Just looking for perfect. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next slide here. So I don't expect you to be able to see this or see the detail, but this is a flow chart that is available on our website, and it outlines what the provincial environmental assessment process is. I'm going to summarize it for you here, but you could just know that each of those bright yellow boxes on that flow chart is a decision point. And at each decision point along the way, there's an opportunity for us to get more information, to ask questions, and get clarification. So in summary, the process really consists of three things. There's the proposal, so that's where the proponent tells us what it is they want to do, what the potential environmental impacts are, and what they're doing to mitigate or minimize or prevent those impacts. Once we've got the proposal, there is a review. So there is a departmental review. We review it within the Environmental Approvals Branch, and we also send it out for a technical review to the Technical Advisory Committee. And at the same time we do that, we advertise it for public comment, and we're asking for the general public, for people in the immediate area and people who have an interest in the project to let us know what their questions and concerns are around the project. So following that review process, there is a licensing decision, and that's once the information is received and we have all of the information that we need to make a decision. At the same time that that's happening, we have the Crown Indigenous consultation process. So that's the process that we're in this evening, and that carries on throughout through the project, often before the proposal starts and until a licensing decision is made. So the information that we gather during the Crown Indigenous consultation process feeds into the licensing decision. So we will take the information we get through the review process as well as through the consultation process, and then make a licensing decision. And if the recommendation is made to approve it, to issue a license, a draft license with the terms and conditions in that license accompanies the recommendation. And the person who actually makes the decision is the director under the Environment Act. So in this case right now, it's the director of the Environmental Approvals Branch would make this decision. So that's sort of the overall process that all projects go through. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this project in particular because it does have a complicated history. So as was mentioned before, and it sounds like you've already heard some information of tonight, this project was originally proposed by Victory Nickel. The original proposal was sent to us in 2010, And we followed the assessment and licensing process. So there was a technical review, there was a public review, there was a Crown consultation process. And the license was issued with terms and conditions in August of 2011. This process happened just before we started up our online public registry, which started in 2000. And the summary of the licensing process are all available to everybody on our public registry online. The other documents are not available on the public registry, but everything we've done since 2013 is available for everybody to see on the public registry. So this is just where you can find on our public registry in the completed tab. If you search Minago, this is what's going to come up, and you can access those documents there. So this license that was issued in 2011 was issued for the construction and operation and decommissioning of the entire mining development known as the Minago project. So our licenses that we issue are site specific, so they're tailored for each specific project with the terms and conditions that are deemed necessary for that project in that location. And they're also issued for the entire life of the project. So we're considering construction impacts, operational impacts, and the decommissioning closure of the facility all at the time that the license is issued. This particular license was issued with 49 license conditions, plus some additional schedules that laid out additional conditions for wastewater treatment, for monitoring, and for soil testing. So I'm just going to summarize what some of those conditions were. As I said, the license itself is available if you want to look at it in detail, but just so you can kind of see what's considered in the assessment and the kinds of things that we put terms and conditions on. So this license included a wildlife monitoring program, construction conditions, conditions around providing financial assurance in case the company, was unable to finish cleaning up the site on their own, that we would have the finances from them to do that. Requirements around the access road, and as mentioned, wastewater treatment, some groundwater protection and surface water protection clauses. There were also clauses for air emissions, for monitoring air emissions, for waste rock sampling, solid waste and recycling, handling of hazardous wastes, the requirement for an emergency response plan, and that's a requirement to maintain and keep that plan up to date, as well as mine closure decommissioning clauses, and an overall environmental management plan. And then specifically around monitoring and reporting, there were requirements for water quality monitoring, sediment quality monitoring, fish tissue sampling, and toxicity testing. And all of that, in addition to the regular reporting of those, there was an annual report on the environmental issues around the license that would have to be submitted to us on a regular basis. That license required specific monitoring locations in various areas. And so these were determined during the assessment and during the consultation process back in 2010. So for this original proposal, as that's where the monitoring locations were. But as you know, the proposal as licensed did not go ahead. In 2014, an alteration was filed to relocate the proposed tailings waste rock management facility such that it would be located in the Minago River watershed. So the original proposal, as already mentioned, was located in the Oakley Creek watershed, which flows into William River and in turn flows into Limestone Bay into Lake Winnipeg. So because that's considered to be a very sensitive fish habitat, and due to the concerns raised during the 2010 consultations, this alteration was subsequently filed. So this change, because we were changing, the company was changing the location of the tailings facility, and we, as I mentioned, we issue site-specific licenses. This was deemed to be a major alteration. So we went back and did the complete process again. So that big flow chart that I showed you at the beginning, we started back at the beginning. So we advertised it again. We sent it out to the technical advisory committee again and asked them to look at this with this change. So the change being the relocation of the tailings waste rock management facility. So all of the documentation related to this notice of alteration can be found on our public registry because that happened after that was started. So here you'll find it in the In Process tab, and all of the information in this file number. So again, if you search on Minago, you can also search Victory Nickel, or on, I believe we have updated it, so it should say, so it will search for Flying Nickel as well. I think this is an old picture. As part of this review, additional information was requested. The technical review, there was some questions, and we did get some of that additional information, and that is all posted on the public registry as well. However, this process was not completed, and then as was mentioned earlier, the project became financially unsuitable, and the company did not proceed with it, and eventually the ownership of the project changed. So that takes us to last year. In July of 2022, the new owner of this project filed for a notice of alteration. And in this case, it was determined that it would be considered a minor alteration because the current submission is really just updating what was originally proposed in 2014. So it's at the same location. And it's updating the plans, updating, what the project is going to be. And it describes in detail all the changes from that 2014 proposal, as well as addressing the outstanding questions from that original review back in 2014. But because of nearly 10 years passing, we did determine that although it's a minor alteration, we're still going to do a full technical review, and we're going to redo the Crown Indigenous consultation to make sure that we're getting any updated current concerns. In this case, there was no other public comments other than the technical review and the Crown Indigenous consultation. So I'll just show you what the public registry here looks like. So this is what the page looks like now. And so you can see it's got the original proposal from 2014, as well as the comments we got back in 2014, and then the new notice of alteration that was submitted last summer. So the information that we have received from the Technical Advisory Committee will be posted on this page as well. And you'll be able to see that. So that takes us up to where we are now. And where we are in the process. So back to the summary diagram, and I hope this helps. We are at the review stage. So we've got the proposal, it's on the public registry. We're reviewing it with the technical review, with the departmental review, and the Crown Indigenous consultation is going to feed into that licensing decision. So the licensing decision is going to be based on the notice of alteration we got last year in 2022, the 2014 notice of alteration, the technical review comments, and all the additional information we get from the consultation and the consultation report. So then all of that, all of those comments and all of that information, as I mentioned, will be posted to the public registry. But then, of course, the process doesn't really end with the issuance of that license. There are monitoring and reporting requirements if a license is issued that would be included in a licensing decision. And other terms of the license that are going to have to be complied with. So our environmental compliance and enforcement branch will have oversight of the project during construction and during operation for the life of the facility. And in addition, any further alterations that are going to be proposed, if something wants, if the company wants to change something or the way that something's operated or expanded or any changes like that, they would have to be reviewed by the department, and terms and conditions in the license could be added or modified as necessary. So that's where we are. And I'm just going to flip to the last slide. This is the location where you can find the public registry online, and as well as my email if you do have any questions. But I'd be happy to take questions now, I think, if we can do that. So I'm just going to see if I can see the chat window here. All right. Okay. There we go.
Technical.
Oh, I can hear that now.
Okay, it's on now. Hi, Christo Spies, Norway Hills Cree Nation band member. This is for the province. In terms of triggering consultation, when you say that it moved from the one neighboring communities like Cross Lake upstream from that project, now that it's into a different watershed.
I think I'll let Gary answer that one if he's handy.
Because the discharge is going to be going into the Minago River flows into Cross Lake, and it could affect Cross Lake, the lake itself, and it could affect their treaty and Aboriginal rights. So we will be doing a consultation with Cross Lake, as well as Moose Lake and Grand Rapids.
Okay, do we have any other questions while we have her on the line regarding the process, the licensing, where we were and where we are today? Okay, Mr. Mike Miswagen has a question.
That's it, Mike Miswagen from Norway House. My question is to the presenter. In terms of her, she identified lakes and geographic locations. Could we get that on a map to show us, like Drunken Lake? I've never heard of Drunken Lake. Where is Drunken Lake in our traditional area? So for me to understand, like the geographic location of Minago where the project is, and all the affected area, potential affected lakes that she mentioned. Drunken Lake came into her vocabulary, so we need to understand where is that in the map for us to understand, I guess.
We
Yeah,
will.
That's a good question. That's a good question, and I think those were all listed in the license. And if there was not a map attached to the license, which I think there is, but I can double check that, there would certainly be one in the information with the license and the proposal. So I'll make sure that that's available, and I can get that to you guys.
Yes, please, to all the sites that you identified in your presentation, ma'am. Thank you.
We will also send a map of the area to Loretta, I guess, via email.
Okay, I think we have a few more questions. Frida Albert is going to be the next to present a question. Frida, go ahead.
You mentioned there were two alterations. One was the tailings facility being relocated. Is there another one? Sorry. You mentioned there were two alterations. One was the moving the tailings facility. Was there another one?
Yes, so the one moving the tailings facility, the original one was in 2014, filed by Victory Nickel. The second one is to do the same thing, but it's from Flying Nickel, from the new company, and also they're going to do things a little bit differently. So they just updated what their plans are for the site, and they noted in their application any changes from that 2014 application, but the main idea of moving the tailings facility was the same.
With that, why the opposition was made?
That was the intent of filing of that alteration in 2014, was to address those concerns. That's correct.
Okay, great. Some really good questions. We can take a few more questions on. Oh, Christo is coming up again. I'm going to have to charge him twice, but that's okay.
Okay. I'll pay double. This is for, I guess, part of the environmental thing. I was reading on Victor Nickel's website that they found other things that come in the tailing off the production of nickel. And it has I can't remember the acronym for that. There was like 3 other minerals in that tailings. the platinum group metals, right? So does that change how you handle the tailings? Or are they processed more before they become tailings?
I can
No,
take
I'm
a
talking
stab
about,
at that.
I was looking at your website. Yeah. Needs a mic. Sorry, I'll give you a mic. Thanks.
So the question is if there's any additional processing to deal with the precious metals. So at the moment, there's nothing changed in how the processing plant is going to work. If there is a resource and it's economic to recover those particular precious metals, then it will be added to the value of the nickel units, first of all, because then there's a boon to the project and to the community. If there's a change within the plant itself, it would be a secondary circuit within the plant. And what that would do is that you'd end up with not necessarily reduction in tailings, but just a different way of capturing it inside the plant, if that makes sense. Because normally that would be captured in the concentrate that would be leaving it, instead of being separated and going in two streams within the plant. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay, like this is really good dialogue, and it's I like the way the flow is going. A lot of good information going back and forth, and I think that it's so important for everybody to understand why we're having these talks right now. And we have another question here from Mr. Donnie Dixon. Go ahead.
Hi. You're going to have to consult with Cross Lake too, right? Because they're getting that crappy end of the stick with this environmental study. I'm pretty sure that, I don't know if they don't accept your consultation or they can actually stop what if we wanted to mine, they can actually put a stop to that, or vice versa. I'm just putting it out there.
No, that's a very fair question, and
Because I think we're going to have to ask Cross Lake to sit in with us, with you guys, with the province, then get a better understanding of each other.
Yeah, he'll give you an answer on some of the questions.
Yes, absolutely. We will be dealing with Cross Lake or consulting with Cross Lake, and any concerns and issues will be taken into consideration that they bring up. And if the concerns and issues are such that there can't be potential of them saying no to the project, but those concerns and issues would have to be very strong, and they would have to make a case for them.
I hope that answers the question. And, the four communities that are involved in the consultation, of course, is Norway House, Cross Lake, Moose Lake, and Grand Rapids. So as the province has stated, those are separate consultations from Norway House, of course, but they will be doing their consultation and due diligence, making sure that everybody's on board and all the concerns are heard. And I'd like to add one more thing. I was sitting here exactly 12 years ago, and the presentation was right up there when Victory Nickel was doing their presentation. Our way of life is out of that, and now we're continuing this dialogue, and we're going to have some more concerns, and we're going to continue to talk. And that's what the process is going with the community, within our youth and elders. And I just wanted to add that because I was sitting here that day when we booed them off the stage, basically, and said, no, this doesn't work for us. So now we're at another stage where things are progressing in a better way. Norway House is complete partners in this project, and if anything goes sideways, we have the ability to stop the process if there's anything that goes sideways in the further negotiations that we have. So I just wanted to add that. And we have Mike again. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Charge them double. Okay, that's it.
You're going to owe me for this question. Question I have, and I don't know if the presenter is still there, or if she had anything to do with the provincial Crown Corporation called Manitoba Hydro, that went and asked to get an environmental license to do what they've been doing since mid-70s. The province gave them that license, but in the preamble of the lady's presentation, she said that they had to have the right to do consultation that affected our treaty and Aboriginal rights. It affected us. Hydro affected us immensely. They have altered the lifestyle of our people here in Orioles, and I don't think I need to educate the province or anybody, especially from here, because we all know what they did to us. Yep. But the question is, why did the province of Manitoba give the go-ahead to give that hydro the license to continuously destroy what it is that they're doing to us right now? Even today, in our traditional area of Norway House, I think Manitoba, I probably be safe to say that Manitoba Hydro has spent close to $100 million of environmental cleanup in our traditional areas. And I was on council when we tried to do land selections for the MIA. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I am a signatory to the MIA, and I can honestly say there was not my best work or anybody that sat at that room that time. We wanted selections on 2 Mile Channel. They told us to stay the heck away from there. No, they said. We wanted to go to select land at Orange Landing. They told us no. I don't know why. But I know when Community Council did their negotiations, they were able to access land at Orange Landing, I believe. I don't know if they did any selections for 2 Mile, if they got any. But we were able to get some selections in 8 Mile. And the land selections that we did is probably out in Hudson Bay right now because it all eroded. But my question is, a province representative here, could you please tell us when did your Crown Corporation do a presentation to us that affected our actually treaty and Aboriginal right? Access to fish, to fishing, pleasure of fishing. They altered that, and they're still doing it today. So I need to know, is there a breach in that regard? I know that Hydro threw a few million here and there during that, in 2 occasions that they did. But did they come in and consult with the people to get their okay, to get that license for them to operate as a hydro generating company, I guess? That's a question.
That's a very, very good question that concerns our community for the last 40 plus years. I don't know if we have Siobhan still online. Siobhan, are you still there?
I am still here, yes.
Okay, I guess you heard that question. I guess maybe as a representative of the province, you can answer that the best you can with Mr. Muswagon's question, please.
Yeah, and it's a very good question, and I'm certain there's lots of conversations around that. I don't have the specific information to get into a meaningful conversation about that at this time, but I can, just for references, I guess, though the hydro developments were started long before there was an Environment Act, and it's we're in the process of relooking at things as times change, right? So the concerns for the environment came in. They developed the Environment Act that came into play in 1988 only. Since then, there have been reviews and approvals under the Environment Act to look at environmental assessment. And, the processes of Crown Indigenous consultation have been evolving as well. And we're learning a lot and changing approaches and moving forward in that way. So I can't speak to the specific of this particular project that you're talking about. I'm not sure if Gary may have some additional information that he could share with you on that, but yes, it's definitely an important question.
Gary, I think that his main objective is this consultation with Norway House with the project moving forward. But to answer your question, Mike, I can bring this up and I can look into how we can get answers to that alongside of this meeting. And I think, like I said, that's an excellent question. And we have Loretta Bear wants to ask a question. Go ahead, Loretta.
Okay. So good afternoon or good evening. I'm Loretta Bear, a Norway House band member. I wanted to thank Florence for the opening prayer and, the mention of our land and protecting our resources for our children. I think it's appropriate. I also think that it's really appropriate that we have a lot of information here at hand. We really shouldn't have to ask for maps or anything like that. We should have them here available to us to take a look at them. I think that the provincial representatives did a wonderful presentation on the process and that, and great synopsis on the environmental licensing process and the history to date. However, I don't think that for me or for others in the room here that 2 hours is enough. Recognizing that many of the people sitting before you are elders and the first language is Cree, we need to have time to discuss these issues amongst us, rehash the history, and really look at the issues. So I don't know if this is the only session you're having, but I just don't think it's enough.
Fair enough. I agree 100%. And we've done many meetings. And with the maps not being available, that question was asked today. And I will take ownership on that. We should have been prepared and had a map ready. And I think that in the future, we will definitely be meeting a lot more. As the province even spoke to, nothing is over. There's nothing concrete of where we're going yet. There's still a long journey ahead. And that's why I'm glad we're here to ask these questions and in a very, very respectful way. Mr. Belfour, you can ask your question.
Another question, is there a referendum and how much percent for a community to vote on this to pass?
I am not sure of there going to be a referendum. I can't speak to that. I'm here to make sure the meeting is done in a very respectful way. Maybe Councillor Albert would have a comment on that because I can't speak for the leadership or which way the community wants to go and move forward. I would think that would have to be brought up at a meeting and proposed. I do believe that would be the process. And if that is done, then it's up to the leadership to make that decision. It's not up to myself, but it's a great question and it will be answered. Yeah. We have a few minutes before Siobhan has to go. Do we have any more questions? Oh, hold on a second. I think Loretta Mowat wants to make a few comments.
Siobhan, while we got you on the line, our last meeting, there's a couple of things that were asked. So The first question they asked was, so if there was an expansion of the mine, would that trigger a new process under the Environment Act?
Yeah, and the answer is yes. So depending on the scope of that expansion, it could be considered either a minor alteration, and terms and conditions could still be added if needed. And if it's more significant, then it's a new process. So we would have a new proposal and go through the assessment condition.
So the Environment Act license, and then there's the conditions. So if there was a non-compliance, what is the process?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So the Environment Act has quite a tool set for compliance and enforcement of license conditions. We have a different branch. So I'm with the Environmental Approvals branch. Once we do the assessment, coordinate the assessment, issue the license, make sure the terms and conditions are appropriate, and we pass it over to our compliance and enforcement branch. And they have the responsibility for the operational life of the facilities. So they will review the annual reports, they will go do site visits, they will be in contact with the company as they're operating, and they'll have a close working relationship if things, something happens or what's going on, and they'll work through those compliance tools. So we always, of course, try to ensure compliance, get compliance promotion, make sure that the company understands what's required, and that they're able to comply with those conditions. But there are orders that we can require the company to do things. We can require, ultimately we can pull the license so that they're not allowed to operate. Not that we jump to those. There are also the abilities for fines and jail time, actually, if under the Environment Act. Obviously, we don't jump to those either. We do work with the company to figure out what's going on and get compliance as quickly as possible. But we have those tools available if they're needed.
And one more question. If the owner of the company changes hands, what happens to the permit?
Yes, so under the Environment Act, the license stays with the person who has responsibility or ownership of the development. So if it changes hands, if they sell it, or if somebody somehow gets care and control of that development, the license applies to that new owner. We don't have to reissue the license under their name. We typically will, but it remains valid, and all of the conditions still apply, whoever that owner is.
Excellent. I just want to reach out to some of our knowledge keepers, our elders that are in the audience, and I'd like to know if any comments want to be brought forward while we have the time. Does anybody want to say anything? Does anybody have any comments they want to talk about what they heard today, or any concerns? Feel free to ask a question while we have our representative on the line and our people here in the community. Loretta, again? Oh, come on. Oh, yeah.
No. Well, I think time to discuss in our with our families and our relatives, and talk to some of the people who weren't able to make it here from 5 to 7, and then bring the information back. I think that's really important to us, because we also want to take a look, get a visual of the territory. Like, I really don't understand what they're going to do with the tailing ponds. I don't know what they planned on doing with it, and I don't know what the change is. What happens to that debris? And we hear horror stories all over all over the internet, all over the world about what happens with tailing ponds, and we've seen it. We've seen that devastation. You know, and our climate is changing so fast and quickly, we need to think about those impacts on the territory as well. And are there opportunities for us, the general public, to go in and take a look around, a tour around of that area and think about what's happening to the earth? We don't know what wildlife is moving through. Is that caribou that is the caribou that crossed Highway 373? Did they come through that territory? Was that their route? The berries, the medicines, the Saskatoons that we all love so much, the blueberries, raspberries. What's happening there? And our bears, you know, our bears that are moving around in our territory, are they also going? Are they also in that area, and are they being impacted? And mythology itself on Sasquatch, you know, do we have something to talk about in that aspect? So there's a lot to talk about, and I won't say too much more. Thank you, Loretta.
Thank you very much for that comment. I'm not too sure about Sasquatch, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to have packages from now on, and that's why this dialogue is so important with our people. Me and Loretta can put packages together with a map, and then once they're ready, we can have them, the community members come and pick them up if they want them, bring them home. That's a great suggestion, and we're going to do that. We'll have everything ready as soon as we can. I'll be working with Loretta to bring that information forward. But at the last comment you made, we'll have to do some discovery on Sasquatch. Thank you.
Question. Kit tatugino tage tiatsak kapi consider to na ga isiamito kizagitiano kagitsigemun utame gots kampo peniskeri kaginte testamat na isiga gitsigemui kegon migotumaga mamo piahota kisegan sidottame gumine kegon upeniskenik agan kanadit na agani isigastan lege testamarit tamat no kegon kasyan mutsagatik but sama yagon kagitsigemuni aigo kampo dati ayamuago dati muestana ta ni poit na pio Gilbert and Agaitis. Egoson.
I'm going to send that comment back to my interpreter so he can say in English what he just said.
All I did was just ask the elder, and if they had any questions that I did not understand, the questions that are being asked, to raise their hands, I would gladly go sit with them.
Yeah.
And if they had any comments that they wanted to do, and if they didn't want to do it outright, just lift your hand, I'll go help you. Is what I just said to them, and I said, listen to that guy over there. I said,
Thank you very much, Mike. I thought that's what you said, but I wanted to make sure. Okay, like I said, you know what? This is great comments, and I think we have Florence Duncan wants to make a comment.
Hello. I was just thinking, the more I listen here, and I know I would like to hear more, and I'm just thinking about all the minings around the world, and I know that as you explore a new area, that you come up with more ways to not destroy the land. There's always new ways, just like in medical technology, there's more different ways of keeping us alive and well. And we need the land to be alive and well. And I guess that's what you should also present to us in an area where we're going to do this better in this way because this happened in another place. That's what I'd like to see, comparisons to what happened in the other mines around Canada and how it affected the area. And that's what I was just thinking here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's definitely great feedback and questions, and we're all looking at what is this going to mean to our traditional land area. So, Lester, I think you're up 3 times and you're out.
Nainini mo na ka. So, interpreter kita. Ako nang gitikuta 2012 huta gestiatsis. Ako nito. Asa mi nagibenati ko na munyaw hito. Ego tega sa gagyan ni ko munyawak. Ako nagiti ko na hon munyawak. Kipahagis kisiga. Kapaste na magis kisiga. Kitaskina was gone. So asa misinawak. Samina munyaw kibenatik. Ebetaway na mahal ni hine. O sa may sunyawan tagapinit. Miswete ka chisi kwa kiteo. Miswete ka kagiras tawak. Ay ginobmatsik po ni sunyawa. Ebete ma wisto. Sagi minaw ko huni wisto. Kaya na antaw day detsik. Ebete ute kakinawa kabitsik megots. Wisto ayawak. Ego singitik. Kanaga chisi ka gihtom. Pero gigi chisi ko na munyaw. Kanagihtom ego sila luta makita.
I will attempt to. I was trying to write things down. As Lester was talking, but I'll try to shorten it as much as possible. But he was told by an elder back in 2012, I think he said, that the white man is here again, and that they want something from us, and that we have to be very careful because that's all they want from us. They want something from us all the time. In a nutshell, pretty much that's what he said. If anyone eat on, we wins. Ego se? Ya. Kana ko gani sa'yo mi. Kamas na hinot ako. I got pen and paper now.
They said, close your eyes while I take your land. I take your children. Kiteo na. Kestiatis. Kana, don't let them trick you again. My grandson, he said. They'll be back again to take. This is where they put you on this land, and that's not enough. If it's 1%, they'll still take it. No matter what the cost is, they'll come and take your land.
You said it all, man. Ego se.
Thank you very much, Lester, for that comment. And, you know, we hold what our elders say and our family members say who've been here and experienced all that. And we take that right from the heart, and we respect all those words. And I appreciate you being honest and coming forward with those words. Negasani, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Roba. I don't usually speak up, but there's something in my heart I have to say. I'm just thinking about the generations that are coming that could affect their environment and their land, their ways of life. Because some of us here in this committee or other committees still rely on the wild food, and as we know that our Lake Winnipeg the fish is almost gone because of these zebra mussels. And I was just thinking about mostly the wildlife that we hold on to. What's going to happen, like if this proceeds, if it goes through? That's what I'm thinking about. Because I really rely on the wildlife, like moose, caribou. My kids still eat that. That's what I'm concerned about. And we have to think about this very seriously, take it in consideration. Because look at the mines in Thompson. What happened to that place? Like trees are destroyed. The resources that we rely on. And that's all I'd like to say, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I said, now the questions are coming from the heart, which means so much from our elders and our community members. Mr. Chris Clark, you can address the question. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'd like to say good evening. Guests on YouTube. This is what you call, this is a very important discussions we have. Myself, I'm a traditional resource user, a commercial fisherman, trapper. With my group. Here, I have a question for the province. I don't know if any of you have seen the video, the injustice to Waboden, Manitoba, the YouTube video, but in regards to the Bucko Lake mine. The question I have for province, what went wrong there? You hear the mining company getting a fine for, I don't know, $300,000, but my question is, what is the province, what is the mining company doing to mitigate those adverse and cumulative effects that the mine caused? Because the guy on the video, I know him personally. We sit on a national fishing board together, and he calls me all the time. You gotta continue asking questions about this nickel mine, that your people don't go through what we went through. And you know, he fishes that area where it was destroyed now by the Bucko Lake mine. So that's the question I have for the province today. What is being done about that area, that environment? The mining company with the 300 work on trying to help the land and the lake, and that's the question I have for the province today. What went wrong there?
Mr. Kershane.
I I'm not that familiar with Bucko Lake, but as far as what the province does to make sure that mines and those kind of developments are brought back to its original state, each and this is just a recent development, each one of these companies, and this company too will be required to put up surety to make sure that they have enough cash for a mine closure plan and a reclamation plan. And that is now the law. Certainly companies have gotten away with a lot of stuff that shouldn't have been happening. Things like towns like Lynn Lake, the Rotan area, Sheridan, those things were all done prior to a closure plan being required for the companies to ensure that everything is back to as close to natural as possible. So we can only give our word that this company will be required to make sure that they do a proper job once the mine has been completed, so that they close as natural as possible. Thank you.
Is Siobhan, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am here. I guess further to that I think that was Gary speaking, the financial assurance and the closure plans are a legal requirement under the Mines and Minerals Act. So we, under the Environment Act, we would otherwise require that, but we don't have to do it under that act because it is under the Mines and Minerals Act. So that is something that is very important, but is covered off for new mines that come into being after that legislation. And I'm not sure when that came in, but it's been in place and it's being used. There have been some mines that have been closed effectively since then. And then the other side of that is for those older ones where they were not cleaned up. Gary mentioned a few there. To clean those up and we've been doing that in particular over the last few years and have been making some good progress on the most impacted sites. But they're all getting attention from the province. So I don't know if that answers the question there in combination with what Gary's comments.
Chris, does that answer your question, Chris? You were asked, because what you had asked is what happened at Bucko Mine, right?
I guess my real question is, what is being done to help the water and the land that was destroyed there? You got to understand where I'm coming from. I'm the president of the Norway House Fishermen's Co-op. Our traditional name, our Cree name is Gunniseo CP, and it speaks for itself. It indicates where the fish are, the river, and the life of the mine is what, 10 years? But our people have been commercial fishing before even any province, before any government existed in Canada. We proved that in court, and we have a lot at stake here. But at the same time, there's a lot of potential here too. Manitoba Hydro stands to make, what I've seen anyway, that they stand to make over 100 million in profit. And our people are still dramatized. They're still suffering from the hydro development from the 70s. And, just take one look at our community, look at the youth. Not as many as youth going out on the lake and the land. I was fortunate to be raised and taught how to provide for my family out there. And, we have a lot at stake here, and, 10 years of a mine life can cause the demise or collapse of a fishery. Not to say that we haven't had discussion with our fishers yet to what direction or process, what they haven't indicated in which direction that this should go, but we come in good faith. We've come in good faith and have that discussion, and look at all the potential that could come out of this, employment, economic opportunities, but at the same time, we gotta speak and advocate for the lake and the land, the fish, the animals, the bird, the wildlife, all living things that cannot speak for themselves. So our people are here today to speak for those beings that can't. And so with the questions we asked, I hope you don't take it in the wrong way, but it's really concerning, and you know, we have our next generation to think about, and you know, that's all I want is my boys and my future grandchildren to be able to make a living off the lake and the land. And you know, these questions we asked today, it's no way in bad faith or anything, but we need to be informed, and you know, it's important that people ask questions. That was it. Thank you.
Thanks, tonight. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to talk Korea. You know, since we started tayo, prospecto yak 1995 was there. I'm going to talk about the lake, trapping and fishing. Chief is so a gathering in Winnipeg, gathering tehtiatsage ibihtige. I want to Gianemu tenoma saga igen. Mina play green because I was a fisherman. Since I was 16 years old, I started fishing in Grand Rapids. I want to utaminang ipagita one. Ang yabaten Minago ko masaga igen. Minan 2 mile, minan 8 mile sandy bar, and sisna. I want to get tamo yard sa Winnipeg. There was lots of them there. Yagana simon maga. Ngayon ni mon mainanus. Ako ni giswita mo ya, giswaba taman tan sisesin ako. Ako giana mo tin na mining, fishing, trapping and all that. Ako ningi ka get sa mga before closing. Kegon ka yustianat mantu, these minerals utaski. I asked that question. Why did God put these minerals utaski? So nobody said nothing. It's for you to find it. Kinana tamskawate. To prosper in your community. Ako, kitane mo man o minapsisko ge. Ako kitsaas mismo kitane mo mayagita mat. En uhte panititsaas mise. Usito po taganoapastiga atega naman. Tagia igegon in your community. Tagiabasta meigon tai. Sige maginuhte pannano Kaya sostigo get skemuan house tamine yan a level house. Both of my legs is as a here pico panige. There's no answer yet. I go animana my stairway. Ispiga pico paning my leg on it put my wife and dig out. With more time it on our back to get up there. Aguma nas kumuanu ma tamata uabsise. Niston Diana you mining claims. Before Minama TLE was selected, those claims were there already. So ang ingagets kay muna mati TLE, tawiga tenega tege, because mining claims are yes tege. So they did. Naskumit tangungan dos tege. E umaga ganawa tamani na muna yung kita na kinutepan na in our community. Mistake kinutepan daw. Was kaya ni Hina. Mochi tayo na Kinanutas kinaitu na in our house. Ito mga ginawa ko ito my family there were 17 of them in the house. Yeah, Manila nino po ganawa Miss One. I'm looking at the community. Tani. 26, 27 years is a long time. I don't know how much I spend with my family, that's all. Pinongimahan is not much. So. May God bless each one of you.
Thank you very much, Elder Bob. Mike is going to do some translation here.
Aginaabin po. Agi siyam yan. Omisito, our elder Bob Turner, by the way, he started out by saying that he's been prospecting since 1995. And he was a fisherman. Started fishing when he was 16 years old. A young man in Grand Rapids. That's where he originates from. I told the elders, he said he attended a conference with elders in Winnipeg in a gathering. And a question that he posed to the elders is, why did God put minerals on earth? That's what he says. We can have something in our community regarding this mine. He also claims that he has a mining claim as well. He had asked TLE to remove their selections from his claim. And one of the things that he said as well too is our community is poor when it comes to housing. He mentions that one of his family members, the 17 are living at home. And these are the things that he says that we can get regarding mining if we go ahead with it, so we can prosper from it. It's what I understand and gather from your talk. Bob.
I gotta say thank you so much for sharing these words that we've heard from our elders and our community members, the people on the land, the fishermen, and community members. You know, these words and dialogues are so important as we move forward and sharing the information. And like I said before, this is just the first beginning of our journey. There's going to be some more processes that have to take place before we come to the conclusion that this project will move forward. And I think that it's so nice to hear from all age groups and all family members of what is in your heart, because this is a big decision for our community. And like I said before, more packages are going to be coming. Loretta was mentioning that she wanted to share this information with her family. She wanted to share this information with her loved ones. And we will have these packages ready soon. And we will announce it on the radio so somebody can come by, pick up the map, pick up exactly where we are today so we can start taking those steps together. And I think it was a very, very... Lester, you're done, buddy. That's it. Just kidding. We will take one more question from Lester, then I'm going to call up Chief Anderson to come and say some remarks on the process of where we are today, and then we'll have some more snacks and we'll finish off the meeting. Okay, Lester, go ahead.
For me, it's like you coming to my fridge and taking my food. That's not going to happen. Even you give me $1 trillion, you know, money is just a piece of paper. It comes and goes. But this land, this is our land. It'll stay, and it'll always stay that. For me, anyway. I don't know about the others. Money will change you. I seen it. I seen it change. A $10 million man, a $12 million man changed his life. And some of them are gone. So you can bring all your money here, show it to us. I'll turn the other cheek.
Thank you, Lester. I appreciate your honesty and the transparency which you speak, and we respect that. And everybody has the right to their opinion. Everybody has the right to say what's in here. Can I call up Chief Anderson to say a few comments before we close the meeting, please?
Let's see. This evening is Taipanik. I'm thankful that the province, took the time to come and do a presentation properly to the community about some of the environmental issues that could possibly be coming. They also thank the Flying Nickel team here that have come a long way to come and meet with us and to hear more concerns and answer more questions. This project is still a project in discussion. It's not a project that's ready to move forward tomorrow. As a matter of fact, today I was provided a letter from MMF in Winnipeg saying that this is their territory. So if we have everybody wanting to own a piece of Norway House history, then that's something else. That's a fight that will have to go through not only Chief and Council, but the members of Norway House. I do speak for the community when I do say that we do care about what happens in our lands, in our waters. So much so that I started my own fight with Manitoba Hydro. It's a project that was never told to Norway House Cree Nation members that it was going to be happening. In the late 1960s, the New Democratic Party, who we always seem to elect, destroyed our way of life. And through the years, we expected and waited for resolutions and ways to fix that problem. In 1995, 97, they, meaning the governments, the Hydro, gave us a promise and an offer to solve all our issues and problems about that project. And within 5 years, garbage started coming to the surface, contaminated garbage. Today, 20 years later, we're still cleaning up that garbage. So that's what happens when people don't stand up and be heard until after the fact. So the project that had started in the 1960s ended up destroying our way of life, and even today. I'm really concerned about all the erosion that I witnessed and seen at North Shore of Lake Winnipeg. There's cliffs hitting the water at 30 feet, cliffs of mud and silt. So we, of course, alarm made people know what's going on with governments, hydro. Oh, we have an agreement. We don't have to worry, it's part of the agreement. So something that was signed off in 1997 did not include hydro to go ahead and do whatever they want. It doesn't. And only the people that live in that area understand the devastation, understand the kind of trouble that we're faced with now. Now, it's not a matter of the erosion being the problem. The fact is that where did all this material go? Hydro, Manitoba, Canada, nobody cares to tell Norway House what happened because we already signed an agreement. So before anything else gets signed, we, Norway House people, demand a better plan. So the truth is that this trouble we're having today on our environment is actually bigger than this mine. There's some serious environmental concerns that are with us today. And I've spoken to media. CBC came in, did a little bit. CTV now is coming Thursday. We're also talking to some of the environmental groups out of Winnipeg and out of some affiliated environmental groups from throughout Western Province. And we actually hired a real environmental company called Shared Value Solutions, who Hydro didn't allow us to hire because they want us to hire an accountant that knows more about how to campaign than to actually fix a problem that's environmentally damaging. So we've actually fought for about 6 months to the extent that we need better advice and we need professional advice. Now, I understand that we have First Nation knowledge, and that's very important. What I need to know is what's under that water. Why isn't there any fish on Playgreen Lake? What happened to all the vegetation? Why is there an island forming on a lake that's been there for a couple of thousand years? Oh, you signed the agreement, is the response we get. But you know, I care about my community. I care about my people. That's why I spend a lot of my time and effort to try to make things better. Now, I'm never going to please everybody in this community. There's nobody that can. But I don't know what's right and wrong. And I will not go down a path that is wrong. I would much rather step aside and fight with people that are willing to fight to make things right. But so this project, even though it's potentially a life changer for us as a nation and as a people, it will only get support and it'll only work, Mr. Drouin's words, if the Norway House Cree Nation people want it. All over this country, all over the world for that matter, nobody wants to work. You can see it all over when you go out of town. They're bringing in foreign workers. I get often asked, why don't First Nation people want to work in this line of work or this area of work? Because they're not stupid. You go work for your own community, you work tax exempt. Why the heck would you go if you didn't have to? Look at all the top 100 companies in the country or North America. None of them pay tax, but they do it through loopholes. So we've got a battle in our hands. And I don't think it's a mining battle. This mine, if it ever goes to to fruition and starts mining 50 years, let's say. They say 10, but let's say 50 years. We have a monster who has destroyed our community, who continues to destroy our community and our people, and we're not doing anything about it. We're not saying enough. We're not fighting enough. So if we really want to care about our environment and our animals and our vegetation and our people, then fight the monster, Manitoba Hydro. So, just so you know, Manitoba Hydro is expected to reap anywhere from 7 to 8 million on hydro sales to the mine. Am I correct or near correct? So this is just to run the line from wherever they are now up to the mine site. On top of that, they're going to be making sales on an annual basis on the usage of that hydropower. So, if anything, hydro put the money back to the mess you made instead of taking it to the coffers. It's not. So one of the ministers asked me, mining minister actually, is what kind of compensation is Norway House after? That's always the excuse, eh? You're talking to a bunch of poor people. Give them money, they'll run away. They'll back off. Well, guess what? Norway House Cree Nation is not a poor nation. It's a very strong, vibrant, smart, intelligent, good people. And we're not taking any more of this. Here's $1 million. Here's $10 million. Go be quiet for a few years. That doesn't work anymore. What we want a solution. Fix the damn problem. Fix that erosion. Fix that water. Fix the land. Fix the vegetation. That's what we want. Now here's the one twist or the one secret. We want to do the work. That's the difference. Instead of giving me free money, give me the work to fix your mess. And that's how we'll earn our money. My people are proud. My people want to work. My people want to survive. My people want to make it in this world. And my people want their land back. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Anderson. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I'd like to thank our guests, the government of Manitoba. Yeah, the government that took time to come out online and speak to us today. And everybody that's here, thank you for sharing. Everything is recorded. We're going to get all this information out. It's very important. Everything you said, it's from here. And I really appreciate that. I'm going to ask James if he can do the closing prayer for us, and if that would be good.
Thank you, Menente, and everyone that came to come here to Kape Mamawiyak, elders, young people. We feel the days are going fast. I used to have elders that they were strict, but now ginanit few of us are ginanpigot in the skoya chuta. But to have that faith in us, on us, everyone. And ask ko sa manto for this meeting, I sabi, taman. And I wanted to learn more about this mining, and let's ask God to help us. Mantubi ko taminaya kakinogyon. Just to go on. To help one another. Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, that we could come together. This agreement, Lord, I put in your hands. Mina, Lord, our visitors, Lord, they so anybody they go their way. Bless them and keep them, their families, their children, their grandchildren. Nagaminis nan man to. As we go our separate ways. Bless everyone in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
There's still some dessert. If anybody wants to stick around and have some dessert, ask a bit now. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.